You have met someone once, just once. Maybe you talked for 20 minutes at a party. Maybe you sat next to them on a flight. And years later, you still think about them. Not because they were the most beautiful person in the room. Not because they said something clever. Something else happened. Something you probably couldn't name at the time. Most people think this is random. Chemistry. Luck. The right person at the right moment. It is not random. There is a reason certain people stay in your mind for years, while most people fade in a week. And the Stoics understood this reason over 2,000 years ago, long before anyone used the word psychology. Here is the strange part. The people who are hardest to forget are not the ones chasing your attention. They are the ones who never needed it in the first place. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly why that is. And more importantly, you will understand how to become that kind of person yourself, without games, without tricks, without pretending to be anything you're not. Before we go further, if you want more of this, the old ideas that actually hold up in real life, hit subscribe now. It helps this channel keep going, and it means you won't miss what's coming next. Let's name the real problem first. Most of us were taught the wrong lesson about how to be memorable. We were taught to perform, say the right thing, look interesting, have a good story ready, laugh at the right moment, text back at the right time, not too fast, not too slow. This is exhausting, and worse, it does not even work long term. You can perform your way into someone's attention for a night. You cannot perform your way into someone's memory for 10 years. There is a much older idea about what actually makes a person unforgettable. It has nothing to do with performance. It has to do with where a person's sense of self comes from. Some people build their identity out of other people's reactions. They need to be liked, need to be noticed, need the room to respond a certain way. And you can feel it when you're near them. There is a slight neediness underneath the charm. Other people build their identity from the inside. They already know who they are before they walk into the room. And that quality, more than looks, more than wit, more than charm, is the thing that pulls people in and keeps them there. The Stoics had a word for this. They called it having your center of gravity inside yourself instead of outside yourself. Epictetus, a Stoic teacher born into slavery who later became one of the most respected philosophers in Rome, taught something simple that changes how you see every person you've ever met. He said some things are up to us and some things are not. Our judgments, our choices, our reactions, our direction in life, these are ours. Other people's opinions of us, whether they like us, whether they text back, these are not ours. They belong to them. Most people live backwards. They try to control the one thing they cannot control, other people's opinions of them. And they neglect the one thing they actually can control, their own inner steadiness. Here is what happens when you flip that around. When a person stops outsourcing their sense of worth to whoever is in front of them, something changes in how they carry themselves. They stop over-explaining. They stop performing. They stop adjusting their entire personality to match the room. And people notice this immediately, even if they can't explain why. You have felt it. You meet someone who seems completely unbothered by whether you like them. Not cold, not arrogant, just quietly whole on their own. And instead of pushing you away, it pulls you in. Why? Because most people spend their whole lives around others who need something from them. Validation, entertainment, reassurance. And then they meet someone who needs nothing. That absence of need is rare, and the human mind is wired to lean toward what is rare. This is not a trick you perform. It is a state you actually build. And that is the difference between manipulation and character. One is a costume. The other is real. Here is something people get backwards constantly. They think being exciting is what makes you memorable. Big stories, big energy, big personality. Excitement fades fast. Ask anyone who has dated someone thrilling but unstable. The thrill is intense for a month, and then it becomes exhausting, because you never know which version of the person you're getting. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor who wrote what we now call Meditations, never wrote it for an audience. He wrote it to remind himself every single night how to stay steady in the middle of enormous pressure. An empire depending on him. Wars, betrayals, plague. And through all of it, the thing he kept coming back to was not, how do I seem impressive? It was, how do I remain the same person no matter what happens around me? That steadiness is magnetic in a way excitement never is, because steadiness is rare and excitement is common. Anyone can be fun for one night. Almost nobody can be the same calm, grounded, trustworthy presence on their best day and their worst day. Think about the people you actually trust the most in your life. Not the most entertaining people, the ones you'd call at 2 in the morning if something went wrong. Chances are, they are not the loudest personality you know. They are the steadiest one. Stability is not boring. Stability is what lets people finally exhale around you. And when someone can finally exhale around you, they don't forget you. They come back to you. Now here is where most advice gets it wrong in a dangerous direction. Some people hear be mysterious and think that means hide things, control what people see, manage your image carefully. The Stoics taught something almost the opposite. Seneca wrote extensively about the exhaustion of pretending, of managing an image, of performing a version of yourself for an audience. He said it drains a person more than almost anything else because you are essentially living 2 lives at once, the real one and the one you're broadcasting. Real connection, the kind that lasts years, is not built on a person managing what you see. It is built on a person being consistent enough that what you see is simply what's there. Think about the modern version of this. We live in a culture obsessed with curated image, perfect captions, careful timing, strategic unavailability. And it works for about 5 minutes. Then it collapses, because eventually people meet the real version of you. And if the real version doesn't match the performed version, the whole thing falls apart. Trust breaks, and once it breaks, it rarely comes back. Compare that to someone who is simply, consistently themselves. Not oversharing every emotion, not performing vulnerability for effect, just being honestly, calmly, unapologetically who they are. That kind of person becomes rare specifically because almost nobody does this anymore. Everyone is managing an image. The person who isn't stands out instantly. This is not about being an open book with no boundaries. It's the opposite of that too. It's about not needing a mask in the first place. When you don't need to perform, you also don't need to overshare to prove you're being real. You simply are. There is a specific kind of person almost everyone finds fascinating. Someone who clearly has a rich internal world but doesn't feel the need to narrate all of it to you. This is not the same as being cold or withholding on purpose. It's something quieter. It's a person who has built an inner life, interests, thoughts, direction, purpose, that doesn't depend on anyone else validating it. The Stoics called this being sufficient unto yourself, not isolated, not closed off, simply not desperate for outside approval to feel like your life has weight. Here is the modern version of why this matters so much. Most people today are constantly explaining themselves, justifying their choices, narrating their lives online, seeking agreement for every decision. It creates a kind of hunger you can feel radiating off someone. A hunger for approval. A person who has quietly built their own foundation doesn't radiate that hunger. And the absence of hunger is deeply attractive because it signals something rare. This person's life does not depend on my reaction to it. Paradoxically, this is what makes people want to know more about you, not less. When someone has clearly built something solid on the inside and isn't rushing to explain it, curiosity does the rest of the work naturally. Nobody has to manufacture intrigue. Genuine depth creates its own gravity. Here is the part that changes how you see your past relationships, romantic or otherwise. Every manipulation tactic that has ever worked on you, someone pulling away to make you chase, someone using inconsistency to keep you anxious, someone dangling approval to control your behavior. All of it depends on one thing: you not having a steady center of your own. If your sense of worth lives inside you, none of those tactics work. Someone pulls away. You're not destabilized because your stability was never coming from them. Someone is inconsistent. You notice it clearly because you're not scrambling to interpret it favorably. This is the real gift of building an internal foundation. It doesn't just make you more magnetic to the right people. It makes you almost immune to the wrong ones, because manipulation needs a hook to catch on, and a steady person has nothing loose for it to grab. Epictetus put it plainly: no one can hurt you without your consent. Meaning, without your own judgment agreeing that this thing has power over you. That is not a cute quote. That is a functional shield. The more your peace comes from your own judgment rather than from other people's behavior, the less anyone can use you. This is the actual difference between being unforgettable and being merely likable. Likable fades the moment you stop performing. Unforgettable comes from something that was never a performance to begin with. So, let's go back to that person you still think about years later. The one from the party, the flight, the brief conversation you can't quite forget. It was probably never about what they said. It was about how they carried themselves. Calm. Present. Not needing anything from you. Simply, fully themselves in that room, whether you responded well or not. That is not a personality type you're born with. It is something built slowly, the same way Marcus Aurelius built it one private journal entry at a time. The same way Epictetus built it after starting life with nothing at all. It is built by no longer needing the room to like you before you feel like yourself. It is built by staying the same person on your hardest day as your easiest one. It is built by dropping the performance, because the performance is exhausting and it never actually lasts. You do not need tricks to be unforgettable. You need less noise, not more strategy. Less managing what people think, not more control over it. A quieter, steadier center that doesn't move depending on who's in the room. Build that, and something strange happens. You stop trying to be memorable, and you become exactly that, to exactly the people who matter, without ever performing for them at all. If this helped you see people and yourself a little differently, stay a while longer. This channel exists for exactly this, the old ideas that still hold up, explained simply for a life that actually works. If you're still here, subscribe. There's more of this coming, and you don't want to miss it.